You won't believe what happened when my HOA president, Karen, tried to evict me from my own house. She thought she had all the power, but what she didn't know was that I wasn't just an ordinary homeowner. And when the truth came out, her world collapsed. Let me tell you exactly how it went down. When I first moved into that neighborhood, I thought I had finally found peace. The streets looked quiet, the lawns were trimmed, and it felt like a community where people minded their own business. But that illusion didn't last long. On the very first day, before I even finished unpacking, she appeared. The HOA president. People around whispered her name, Karen. And she lived up to it perfectly. She didn't introduce herself, didn't welcome me. Instead, she marched onto my property, clipboard in hand, scanning my fence like a drill sergeant. With a forced smile that felt more like a threat, she said, "You'll need to repaint that fence. We don't allow faded colors here." That was it. No hello, no neighborly greeting. Just rules, orders, and her attempt to assert dominance. First, I brushed it off. Maybe she was just too serious about her position. But within days, I realized it was more than that. Every morning, I found violation slips tucked into my mailbox. Grass too tall. Trash bin not hidden. Curtains the wrong shade of beige. It was ridiculous. And the strangest part? None of my neighbors were being targeted. Their lawns looked worse. Their bins sat out longer. Yet no one else got notices. It was only me. One evening, while I was dragging my trash to the curb, she appeared again, standing in the middle of the street, arms folded like she owned the place. "You're on thin ice," she said coldly. "We don't tolerate troublemakers here." Trouble? I had paid every fee, followed every guideline, and still she treated me like a criminal. That's when it clicked. This wasn't about the HOA. This was personal. She wanted me gone. I tried to stay calm, but as I sat in my living room staring at a pile of violation slips, a decision formed in my mind. I wasn't going anywhere, and if she wanted a war, she was going to get one. She had no idea who she was dealing with. It didn't take long for her to escalate. One afternoon, she showed up at my doorstep, 2 board members in tow, waving papers in my face. "This is your eviction notice," she declared proudly. "You're unfit for this neighborhood." Her arrogance was staggering. Imagine trying to evict someone from a house they legally owned. The 2 board members looked uneasy, clearly not as confident as she was, but they stayed quiet under her glare. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just stood there, calm, watching her dig herself deeper. I wanted to laugh, but I kept it inside. She thought she was untouchable, that her little title gave her the power to crush me. What she didn't know was that I had spent years in situations far more dangerous than a suburban HOA battle. I had training, resources, and connections she couldn't even begin to imagine. Still, I let her walk away that day, her heels clicking with smug authority, because I knew something she didn't. The game had just shifted, and I was no longer playing defense. The next HOA meeting was where everything changed. The room was full, neighbors sitting quietly, too intimidated to speak against her. Karen sat at the head of the table, papers stacked neatly in front of her, confidence radiating as she began listing off violations. Half of them made up, the rest exaggerated. She dragged my name through the mud, clearly enjoying every second. Finally, she looked at me and said, "Do you have anything to say for yourself?" I stood slowly, keeping my voice calm and steady. "Yes," I said. "I know the law better than you ever will, and I know every threat you've made is baseless." The room went silent. Her smile faltered for just a moment, but I wasn't done. I leaned slightly forward, lowering my voice just enough to make everyone lean in. "You think you're untouchable, Karen, but what you don't know is who you're dealing with." I let the silence hang, then dropped the line that would change everything. "I'm CIA." The effect was instant. Her face froze. The room erupted in whispers. She tried to laugh it off, but her hands trembled as she shuffled her papers. For the first time since I moved in, Karen wasn't in control, and she knew it. After that night, things turned quickly. Word spread like wildfire through the neighborhood. Neighbors who had stayed quiet for years finally spoke up. One family admitted she had fined them for having wind chimes. Another revealed she threatened them over planting the wrong flowers. Everyone had a story, and suddenly they realized they weren't alone. They had me standing up to her, and that gave them courage. At the following board vote, her so-called allies turned on her. One member even said, "You've abused your power long enough." Karen's face turned crimson. Her voice cracked as she tried to defend herself, but it was useless. Her reputation crumbled, her authority dissolved. I didn't even need to push hard. She had destroyed herself with her arrogance. Behind the scenes, I made sure her fabricated eviction notice would never see the light of day. Legally, it was worthless, and I had the knowledge to bury it completely. I didn't need to wave around credentials or prove anything further. The damage was done. Karen had lost, and everyone knew it. Her downfall was swift. She was removed from her position, stripped of her title, and reduced to just another resident. Without her constant harassment, the neighborhood changed. People laughed again. Barbecues popped up. Kids played outside without her swooping in to bark about noise violations. For the first time, the community actually felt like a community. As for Karen, she still lived there, though much quieter than before. Occasionally, I'd catch her glaring at me from across the street, but the power was gone from her eyes. She avoided me, and I let her. I had no interest in rubbing salt in her wounds. The battle was over. Still, sometimes as I sat on my porch with a cup of coffee, I thought about the irony of it all. She had tried so hard to evict me, to push me out, to prove her control. But in the end, she was the one exposed. Her arrogance turned against her. All I had to do was stand firm, let her overplay her hand, and remind her that some people are not as powerless as they seem. She picked the wrong person to mess with, and she'll never forget it. And if you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, because I've got plenty more jaw-dropping stories where this one came from. If you enjoyed story, like, share, and subscribe.